Hello and welcome to this absolutely fantastic Decoded episode. We've titled it Library 2.0. We are going to be covering some quite fantastic things today, both new announcements, some optimization tips. But before we jump right in, I'll do a bit of housekeeping. So the whole session is being recorded, so don't fear if you miss a bit or you have to tab out. We'll send that recording at the end with any resources or links that Luke mentions. We will also answer all of your questions, but please put them into the Q&A button at the bottom of Zoom. If they're in the chat, we can sometimes miss them if there's a lot of chat going on. So if you put it in the Q&A, there's no way we can miss it. We'll endeavour to answer all of the questions by the end of the webinar. Any that we don't get to, we will include in the follow-up email, which you will receive in a couple of days. So I think that's it from my side on the housekeeping. A couple of other things to go through before I hand over to the illustrious Luke and he completely steals the show. So if Luke, you could move on to the next slide. Oh, yes. So we called this 2.0 because if some of you were here a couple of months ago, we ran our initial library snackable called KPIs Decoded. And in this, we covered all of the hot sort of performance tips and tricks. Luke gave us a bit of his insider knowledge, being the library product manager. He shared a lot of his knowledge. We answered a good wealth of questions on that. So I'll put the URL in the chat. If you did miss it, definitely go and check it out, but only after this, because obviously you're here for this one right now. And we've also just started Refer a Friend. So if you fancy earning yourself up to $500, there will be a link in chat shortly. Just go to that. If you've other people in your network are thinking about trying out a Qlik extension tool or anything like that, refer them, because you could be in with the megabucks, and it's certainly worth it for about 30 seconds worth of work. So can't really make it any easier than that. So I think that's the last slide from me before we get to the end. Oh no, the glorious agenda. So I did tell you it was jam-packed. So Luke will obviously go into this in more detail, but we're going to cover off a lot of what's new and fun. Even though we covered so much in the last one, there's been a lot of work from Luke and his team on that. And we, of course, right at the end, are going to cover off what we call the force multipliers, which is the value of Vizlib with Qlik, and some of the amazing things you can actually do when you really get to grips with the tool, when you know where everything is and you can use it to its full power. So I think that is it from me right now. I will hand over to Luke before he stops me off for just having a bit of a chin wag, and Luke, take it away.
Thank you very much. Right, yeah, okay. Once again, thank you all for joining. These Decoded series across all of our products are super popular, so I'm really happy that everyone is really enjoying them as well. And hopefully this time in the Decoded 2.0, we'll cover off some burning questions, as well as being able to answer at the end any questions that you have regarding the things that we covered. Right, okay, so I suppose, as you can see the agenda, we've got the table, pivot table, combo chart, container grid. Combo chart isn't. Yes, sorry, ignore me. Combo chart is there, as well as the container grid and Sheet Menu Plus. So if the Zoom toolbar would leave, I would be able to. There we are. Let's get into it. So this app, to begin with, will be available on our demo website. Whether you're getting it on the portal or you're getting it from the actual Vizlib website, but this is what will be available for you guys to download sometime this week, early next week. Sure, let's get into it. So by the first agenda point, table. And what are we covering here? So we're actually going to be covering indicator ranges. So as we see here, I've got two tables. I'm going to have one with no indicators and then a comparison one down here with indicators. So indicator ranges are fantastic for several reasons. One of them being able to tell at a quick glance if something is at a greater or less than or equal than a value or amount. So for example, let's say we have the average price of our sum of units is about $30. We can then see if something is above or below that. So how do we do this? Well, that is simply done by going into the table and then going on any data that is a measure, and that is defined by the sum or count, as we can see here. So these are just some very basic things. And then we can go into the sum unit price here. Scrolling down, you'll see there's some options a bit further down here, which are indicators. So what we have here is previously we had something called single indicators. And now what that meant is that there was a threshold of, let's just say, 30. And then that would calculate if anything was below or above that. It's a bit of a dumb way of calculating, because there's no, if it's dead on 30, then that's great. It would appear as an arrow like this to the side. If anything is above 30, then it appears as this blue arrow, and equally anything below 30 appears as this red arrow. However, we've now introduced something called rules. And now what rules are, we have 5 different rules which you can choose from. So equals, greater than, or equal to, less than or equal to. And what this means is that I can do, if anything is less than a specific amount, this can either be an expression or whatever. So I'm just going to do something simple, like if it's less than, if it is less than, I don't know, let's just do 25. It is going to be a car that is, I don't know, red. There we are. And now we can see we have a little, I'm actually going to expand this so we can see more rows. So we can now see there are a few of them which have cars that are now red. Equally, we can then go ahead and say anything that is equal to a specific amount. So let's just take this number here. So 62.82. So 62.82. It will be a megaphone that is blue. And then we can see that, oh, that's a megaphone. And then we can do finally something which is greater than or equal to, and let's choose a number which is above that. So let's do 65. Anything that is above that, we can use the Bitcoin logo, and what's its color? Is sort of like a yellow, isn't it? There we are. And very quickly, we have set up indicator ranges, very specific to my data points or what I want to specify. Now, of course, these don't have to be static numbers, as I mentioned. And more importantly, it is very, very flexible. Now, I know the Qlik table has a very similar feature to this. However, once again, as Vizlib tends to do, we have expanded upon that capability and provided you with a much more logical and customizable view for your Vizlib tables. And you may be thinking to yourself, okay, that's great, but what about pivot tables? Well, that is something that we are working on. To keep with time, let's go to the next one. So if there are any questions, I'll answer them at the end. You can use the Q&A feature along the way to ask your questions. So we got the pivot table, which I have not made a page for, and we will do pivot table here. So the pivot table has an advanced way of calculating your colors. So beforehand, there was a feature. If I go ahead and I just go ahead and create a chart. So we've got the branch ID, we've got customer type, we've got city, date, month, date, and then let's use a measure of gross income and gross margin percentage. There we are. That is fine. This is great. This will do good for now. So here's our table. Beforehand, if you wanted to do any form of coloring, so let's take customer type, you would have to manually specify a dynamic styling. So if we go into background color, we can then go in here, and this is where the feature has now improved. So for example, if I want this nice blue, fantastic. But now what we can do is we can actually go in here and start writing, for example, an if statement. So let me just take the customer type field, just in case I forget it. We can now go in here, and I'm going to say if customer type equals member, then we are going to do something green, and then else it is red. Okay, cool. Now we've done that. Hopefully I got all my spelling correct. And for anyone who's colorblind like myself, there is hardly any difference, but you can now see that there is a difference in color. And that is the benefit of using, let's actually just use blue. So then I can see it as well. There we are. So we can see here that there is now a difference, and that is being calculated on the dimension level. As I said beforehand, it used to be dynamic styling. There is a note for anyone who is using the dynamic styling feature that this will at some point not be supported. Not be supported is one way of saying it, but it's something that won't be developed any further. So we believe that this is now the next best step for you guys to be able to actually calculate your dimension colors. And this works not just for the header row. For example, we could also move it down to city, I think maybe it was, or whatever. If we go into the table, let's go and move customer type down here, for example. Create. So we can now see that the customer type also works on the left-hand column as well. So hopefully this will provide you with some new ways of coloring. It doesn't have to be a static chart anymore regarding your coloring. It can now be an advanced coloring chart once again. And okay, onto the Vizlib container. Now, the Vizlib container, as we'll elaborate on later, allows you to have multiple tabs, either with one element in it or something which people really love is this grid feature that we have. I'll be expanding upon that later, but nonetheless, let me just delete that. That's fine. Container, brilliant. But what this page is talking about is about how to do bookmarks with the Vizlib container. Now, I'm not sure if people remember, or for those who have used the container grid previously, it used to be the case that the container didn't remember the position of the tab. That I'm done editing here, but it didn't remember the tab position that you guys were on and when creating your bookmark. However, now it does. And again, that is done by going into your bookmarks, creating a new bookmark. I'm going to save the page layout. So you have to make sure you got this one selected. And then I'm going to just enable this webinar example bookmark, create that, okay that. And now what I can do is I can go on, for example, this page or that tab. I'm going to click that, and now it brings you to the tab here. And again, that's super simple. I haven't done anything else within the property panel. That's native. That is there for anyone to start using, for anyone who is on the appropriate version. Again, we always recommend you to be on the latest product version. So for the Vizlib container grid, that is 2.13 and 1. As I said, it's very simple. I'm going to leave this one blank for you guys to come in and start playing around with for yourself. Staying on the container grid, I've had a few people ask me, okay, Luke, this is great. You have a container grid, but I want to be able to have a custom layout. Now, that is a very fair point. And we do provide you with several options for it. So let me just go over here. So we have our rough layout of what we want. We want 3 KPIs on the left, 1 larger bar chart in the middle, and 2 filters on the right-hand side. And how can we do that? Well, if we click into the Vizlib Containers grid function here, we can see that you are presented with 5 options. Now, okay, we don't provide you with a way of making your own. At least that's not a feature as of yet. However, we can start playing around by having a container nested within a container. So that's done by here. We are going to use a 3-column layout, which we have. So I'm going to click on this one, and that's going to apply my 3 columns. But first, I'm going to create another Vizlib container grid. So if we go find container grid, and I'm going to split this one in thirds, and we have this here. So now I have my thirds, and we can see I've already gone ahead and made each of these KPIs a master item. And that means I can go ahead and just type in, do this, find the name, if I can actually find it, container grid, there we are. And I'm going to have this one, then I'm going to have this one, and then finally this one. Okay, great. But you don't want to have the, well, you may want to have it, but for me, in this example, I don't want to have the tab, and I definitely don't want to have the title. So I'm going to turn that off, I'm going to turn this off. Under container settings, there's the option for you to change different ways of how you can interact with the tabs. So you've got tabs, accordion drop down. You've even got a carousel which can automatically rotate, which is kind of fun. I've done a few examples for like doc information. That's always quite a fun one. And then I'm just going to use the hidden function. Okay, brilliant. I'm now going to add this as left, or maybe grid chart left, container grid even. Container grid left. I'm going to add that as a master item, and we can find that here. So container grid left. And now we can start nesting. So again, I'm going to do the same thing with this. That is great. I'm going to label that container grid just so I can find it easier. Container grid bar chart. And then finally, I'm going to do the exact same thing for my filters. I'm going to bring in another container grid here, not from the master visualization, but from custom objects. I'm going to split this one in two. As we can see, we have that option once again. I'm going to make these master items. So grid chart filter 1. And I'm just going to copy that, and grid chart filter 2. And then we're going to add this as I have grid chart filter 1, and then grid chart filter 2. Fantastic. Exactly the same thing. I'm going to hide that. I'm going to bring some of these components, going to go turn off show titles and hover menu, add to master items, container grid, right. And there we go. I'm going to type in right. And then here we have it. So I can now delete these, delete that. I can now start playing around with my container grid, and we have a container grid which is now responsive as well. I think that's something which is really worth noting. We can obviously start changing some things. We can make it, somewhat similar. But the best part is that, as we know, Qlik works on a grid-based system, and using this, you can have the ability to really play around with that custom styling as you want it. So, for example, I may want this bottom chart to be a little bit bigger, and these two I'm going to make a little bit smaller. I'm going to actually make this one not as sensitive to that same size, and I'm actually going to make the filters a little bit smaller. And again, just by a little playing around, I've got a container grid, which is now housing 6 components in a custom layout, which I really like and I want to use for my application. Okay, great. And now we're finally going to go on to the sheet menu for the last couple minutes of this webinar. I never stick to the 15 minutes. I always have too much to say. Anyway, here is a sheet which is kind of cool. It's got some supermarket information about some of my regional supermarkets. We got three regions here. So how do we really make this a Vizlib dashboard? And that is by using the sheet menu, or more specifically, the sheet menu plus. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm actually going to start playing around the sheet menu. I'm just going to make some room for it to begin with, because obviously you need a place for your sheet menu plus to appear on. So I'm just going to type in plus there. That brings me the sheet menu. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to start some styling. So I'm just going to use some basic templates for the time being, help speed things up. I'm going to use the Vizlib one because I like the look of it. Why wouldn't I? I'm going to also then go into the top bar. Maybe I want to add a title, maybe top menu. I'm going to add some groups, for example. I'm going to add a group here. I want to have an icon. I'm going to have it as a star. I'm going to have this one, some groups underneath it, some sheets underneath it. So, for example, have my regional supermarket. I'm also then going to add another. Whoops, sorry, that was an action. I'm going to add another, and this is going to be, for example, another sheet. Great. So I now have a sheet that I'm happy with. And now, how do I apply this to every sheet? So what you have to do, instead of just copying and pasting this element, which you can do, I highly recommend you making it a master item and then applying that master item to every sheet you want this to appear on. So, for example, we're going to go to this page here. I have gone ahead and, like in good old Blue Peter fashion, I've made one earlier. And this is a dashboard which has a sheet, as we can see up here, with which is a master item. And we can see here that's a linked master item. And you may say to yourself, how did you click on that? Well, you click on any blank space in the top menu here for your master item sheet menu plus, or sheet menu if you were using that to appear. I can then go into edit mode, and I can then start playing around with my information. So, for example, top menu, regional stats. I want to have an icon here. I'm going to have a house or an hourglass. Sure, that's fine. Done editing. And now what this means is that I can go to any of my other sheets. So, for example, sales quarter. And as I'm using this as a master item, it updates everywhere. And more importantly, using it as a master item really has the benefit of improving performance within your Qlik application. Because once you've first initially loaded some of your elements, once you've first initially loaded the sheet, that's cached for you. And so anytime I go to a different sheet, so I'm going to go to this one, which I haven't opened yet, we can see things are applied nice and quickly. At Vizlib, we're always looking at different ways of improving performance. But as a rule of thumb, this is a really good way for you guys to start improving performance right away if you're not already using it. Moreover, you may see that I have on the right-hand side what I like to call a bit of a hidden feature. I don't see many customers using it because until I tell them what it is, and they're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. This has really saved me some dashboard space. And that is this side menu. So in fact, actually, if I go to my previous example here, one sheet over, was it this one? I can't remember which one it was now, maybe in this one. Yeah, here we are. So by default, when using the Vizlib template anyway, we have a side menu that appears. So what's the benefit of the side menu? Well, the side menu, for example, allows you to allows you to have additional elements that you don't necessarily want on your page, such as filters. So in my side menu here, which you can actually expand whilst in edit mode, I'm going to add a master item, and I'm going to add one of my filters that I had earlier. And we can see that I can now change the master item height. So we can see, something around that, that's fine. I now have a filter, which has been taken off my page. And you know what? I may even want to have a KPI in here, because why not? So I'm going to then go find a KPI. And again, the same thing, let's just increase the height of it a bit so you can see some of the KPI information. And now when I'm done editing, that means it is I can either have it displayed permanently, or I can have it on this Qlik, so it is saving dashboard space. But okay, cool, that's fantastic. We have now done that. All about customization, but further customization on top of that. And this is where, once again, you can use the sheet menu's ability of custom CSS. So in global settings down here, we have the option for visible on canvas. I always like to turn this one off. Dashboard space is valuable no matter where you are. And we can see that by turning that off, I have now removed that space, which now means I can bring this line object to fully expand. Again, I clicked on the top menu by here, any blank space that'll do. And now I've got the option for CSS styling. I've done a little video on it, so I would recommend you watching that. But once again, in good old Blue Peter fashion, I have written some code earlier, and I'm just going to paste that in. It's important to have the equal sign and 2 apostrophes to wrap the CSS styling. I'm going to do that, press apply, and we can now see that I have applied a gradient background to my sheet. Again, bringing you with some lovely custom branding to your Qlik sheet. So I believe I have covered everything on that list, except for, well, I mean, hopefully you can see some of the benefits of Qlik plus Vizlib. Again, we always like to say that we love Qlik at Vizlib, of course. It is something that we pride ourselves to have such great relationships with, but it's important to realize that with us, you can really elevate your Qlik environments instead of, well, the way I like to say with the sheet menu plus, especially, you're then making a dashboard which people don't have to use, but they want to use. So yeah, maybe we should do some questions. I see we have quite a few things in chat, some Q&A.
We do indeed, Luke. It's been absolutely busy in there. So let's start from the top of chat, and then we can hit the Q&A. So actually, let's start right at the bottom. Tom Holland, love top menu and side menu, makes my reports look much more professional. Not a question, but I had to get that in there first. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure Luke's going to be sending you some merch for that one. Right, first question. Can you filter the data based on the indicator? That's from Avis.
I filter the data based on the indicator. So within indicator ranges, let's hope I get this question right. If not, please do send another comment or we'll answer it after the webinar. So you are basically making selections. You're doing a filter essentially within the column itself. I haven't actually tried it with, for example, set expressions and anything like that. So I would actually be curious if that is something that you're asking for. So we could do, for example, what column was this? It was what was this? Sum. Let's try average. Oh, I know you can do sum and all that. You can do expressions within this. Hopefully that's what you mean. I'm not entirely I may have answered it. I'm not entirely sure. So I do apologize. If I haven't, please do send another message, but you can't necessarily click on this icon to apply a selection to only see related values. That would have to be a filter or a slider or however you decide to do it. So there's a few different ways to skin a cat with that one.
Good stuff. Yeah, like Luke said, if you have more burning questions and we simply run out of time, just email us after the follow-up email. That will include all our contact details, or alternatively reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're always happy to take questions and we can carry on the conversation there. Next question: is there a feature to style borders dynamically? I have a finance report built on Vizlib pivot table, and my customer has asked for cleaner borders between main headings.
I know. Okay, so let's. I'll break that question down first for the table. So in our demo app, we have an example with the table which has custom CSS. So we are going to use table grid here. So we can see that we have a filter on the right hand side and Man United is currently selected. Whereas if I want to use the filter to then select Arsenal, I can do that. And that's done through CSS itself. Within the pivot table, that may be an interesting one. I can't think off the top of my head if we have. Could you repeat the question? Sorry. Let's just make sure I get that all correct.
Yeah, sure thing. So is there a feature to style borders dynamically? The use case is finance report built on Vizlib pivot table, and a customer has asked for cleaner borders between main headings.
Okay. I believe it is calculated for everything. Again, that's not to say that it always has to remain that way, but I believe the way that it's currently working is that if you define a border width of 3 pixels, that is applied for the entirety of the chart. So, for example, on the right-hand side here, I think sales and ads table would have thicker borders between. You may be able to specify it based on a type, so customer type. You may have some styling within this. Left column width custom, maybe not that. I'm going to say no for the time being, but yeah, if it's a feature request that you want, by all means, you can send it over to us and we can definitely look into it.
Awesome. We'll have to run through these questions now because we're already. We don't want to take up everyone's time. Is there any way to customize size and label top menu button?
Yes, there is. There's different font styling which you can have within the tool. Also, if there isn't, you can use what I've shown you with the CSS styling to actually change that yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Does the sheet menu have the same capabilities as the sheet menu plus?
Yes, and more.
Ooh. That is a question. Good question. Yeah. Good question.
Yes, as we can see here, something really implemented a few weeks ago now is the ability to actually customize the selection menu up here. I love it. I'm so happy we finally got that included. It means you can really have a full customized dashboard.
Nice. Ayush has put, can you please verify and provide full access to mentioned global UAT NAS path? Please find error log and trailing mail. Maybe that was a copy and paste for support.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't necessarily know.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, let's do last one. And then, like I said, guys, any questions that we haven't answered, we will include in the follow-up. And likewise, if you are trying to fall asleep tonight and a question pops into your head, there's multiple ways to reach out to us: community, LinkedIn, responding to follow-up emails, all of that good stuff. So final question, Luke, what's coming next? Will the pivot table have the indicators range soon? Indicator ranges soon.
Yes, I know I hinted at that. And yes, we are working on that, actively working on it. So keep your eyes peeled, have a look at our feature implementations. Not that. What's it called? Changelog. There we are. Yeah, so definitely have a look at that. It's definitely worth viewing and definitely subscribe to it, because then you're always up to date with everything. And that's what me and Michael always badger on about, is about always being on the latest extension. I know it's not possible for everyone,
Yeah,
but definitely
does help, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely do. Yeah, definitely. Actually, for Qlik SaaS, it is better to use the online extension than the off. There is added improvement to performance there. So there's an additional nugget of information for you guys.
Love it.
So I suppose questions, we've done that.
Just to help out, I saw a few performance related questions. A lot of those we got to in the last video, the KPIs Decoded, which again is library focused. I've just linked it again there. Check it out. That will also take you to the playlist of all our other Decoded episodes. So lots of performance tips and tricks in there. So definitely check those out. But like I said before, I've said a few times now, we will get to all of your questions. So don't fear. This is not the last you've heard from us. It was great to see a lot of familiar names in this. So I look forward to seeing you all on the next one, which will be in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. I think that's on finance and some awesome finance right back use cases. Thanks to everyone again for the amazing questions. We've just been absolutely bombarded. It's awesome. It's really, really good to see. Shows you're all tuned in and listening, which can be hard with Luke sometimes, I know, but we got to give props where props is due, but I'm only joking. Luke, thank you very much. As always, absolutely fantastic content, always engaging. And yeah, look forward to seeing everyone on the next one.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Keep well, everyone.